Good morning, West Ham fans. We always knew that this transfer window was going to be absolutely crucial for us. We've been exposed in so many areas this season, defensively, in our midfield, up front. We've looked pretty toothless. We need to make sure we bring in signings this season. Graham Potter, he's only been in charge of the club for 5 days, but already he's got to contend with a number of injuries to players that are essentially key, many of them key for the first team. Jared Bowen, he's going to be out until the best part of the next 4 to 5 weeks. Looking likely that we're not going to probably see him until Fulham, unless we get incredibly lucky. Mikel Antonio, we know the situation with him. He's obviously going to be out for the season. Is he going to be back at all? We certainly can't depend on him for this season, that's for sure. Nicholas Füllkrug, another one of our strikers. Again, very nasty hamstring tear that he sustained against Aston Villa on Friday. Looking likely that he's going to be out for the best part of 2 to 3 months, which means, again, another player that we can't depend on for this season, for the majority of this season. It's going to take him a long time to get back anywhere near to the level that we need him at this season. And he was actually looking pretty good recently, which is a real shame. And then you look in midfield, of course, right? You've got Crescencio Somerville. I'm hoping this one isn't as bad, okay? It doesn't look like it's as bad because he did continue to play up until half-time, until being subbed by, obviously, Potter and replaced by Seafell. Hopefully, he's going to be back sooner rather than later. I suspect that it won't be a big injury. I'm hoping he'll probably be back within the next week or 2 weeks. But nevertheless, it's another injury. Todibo, defensively, not a good area that we want to be losing players right now. He's also injured. Mavropanos took a whack to the head against Villa as well, so he's going to see himself out of the team for the next couple of weeks. And then you've got Emerson at left back, also another injury. A player that's been, consistently in the first team for most of this season. So even before Graham Potter took charge, we knew we had to make reinforcements, bring in reinforcements into the club. Now it's becoming even more crucial for us. There are 3 key positions, 3 key areas right now that Graham Potter is going to make some significant signings for. Defensively, I think is key, but more so midfield and attack. We know how bad we have been in the central midfield positions this season. Unfortunately, Edson Alvarez has just not been on it, certainly not been at the level that we would have hoped he would have been at. Certainly nowhere near the levels he was at last season. Guido Rodriguez, just not good enough for the Premier League. Too slow. Good passer of the ball, but that's about all we can bring. Other than that, Carlos Soler, we had him for a couple of games where he looked pretty decent, but again, quite recently he's looked exposed. We really, really do lack options in midfield. We've only then got Souček and Paqueta, who's kind of blown hot and cold most of this season as well. So massive area for us to kind of reinforce. Now, the players that we have been linked with, and it's certainly gaining a lot more momentum over the course of the last week. And there's a couple here that I think could really add and bolster the strength that we need to bring into that midfield area. One of which is a guy from Chelsea, which is Carney Chukwuemeka. Now, a lot of you will be aware of him already. He's 21 years old, young midfield player, probably worth in the region of around about £20 million. Can play central midfield, can also come in off the left. Good player. He's a physical midfielder, someone that can break through defences and set teams on the attack. He's got good pace, he's got good vision, he's got good passing ability, something that we definitely need. He's played around about 23 games for Chelsea, and you wouldn't be surprised to hear this, but he scored 1 goal. Guess who that was against? Us. Quite like Chukwuemeka. I think it could be someone that, as I say, could add a lot of value in that midfield area. Someone that, I could potentially see something happening with that. But there will be other clubs that are interested in him. But for the sake of his own career, he's going to need to make the move because he's just not really breaking into that Chelsea team. So I can definitely see legs in that one. The other one, and perhaps this one, might be something that is more likely to happen, and that is Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, the ex-Leicester midfield player. Went to Chelsea at the start of the season. I believe they paid in excess of around about £20-25 million for him. He's an experienced player by all accounts. When you compare him to some of the other players that we've been linked with, particularly in midfield, he's an experienced player. Obviously played in the Premier League. He can play anywhere across the whole of the central midfield positions. Okay, he's a proper, what I would typify as a box to box midfielder. He's only played 6 games for Chelsea. So again, like Chukwuemeka, he needs a move in order to progress his career. Good passer of the ball, just like Chukwuemeka, can break up attacks, but can also get the ball forward and set up attacks as well, right? So he's someone that I definitely like. Box to box, that's exactly what we need to bring into West Ham. Again, in terms of value, I would imagine, bearing in mind that he's not been playing for Chelsea, they paid 25 million for him. I think they're probably going to look to take a loss. He's probably going to cost West Ham in the region of between 15 to 20 million if we sign him on a perm. But maybe we can get him on a loan deal. That could be a likely option for us, because better for Chelsea to get rid of him on a loan, ultimately take him off the wage book, get him at West Ham, and maybe get him on an option to buy. Quite like the idea of bringing him into the club. Could be a very good option. There have been some other links as well, one being a lad called Ezechiel Banzuzi. Now, if you're like me and you haven't heard of him before, it's understandable. I did a bit of research on this guy. Now, he is not someone that is box to box like a Dewsbury Hall. He's been playing in the Belgian league. He's playing for a team called Leuven. He's more of a central attacking midfield player. So someone that is going to be, I guess, more of a threat, obviously, from an attacking perspective. He can start from deep. He likes to carry the ball. He's a good dribbler of the ball. He can set up attacks. This season, he's made around about 20 appearances for Leuven. Not a goal scorer by all accounts. If you look at the statistics on him, he scored 1 goal in around about 20 appearances. I think he's got 5 or 6 assists. But nevertheless, he's someone that's got a bit of flair about him, could bring something to the team. But I'd imagine that maybe not someone that's going to walk straight into the team, particularly when you consider the fact that we do have good central attacking midfield options, whether that's going to be the likes of Paqueta or Kudus or Somerville when he's back. All of those players can play in those types of positions. So I don't know whether he's someone that we really need, but as a backup, as a reinforcement, someone coming off the bench, he could be an interesting player. We're not the only team that's in for him. Leicester City are also going in for him as well. But, is there really going to be an option for him? Is it going to be Leicester? Is it going to be West Ham? All kind of depends on whether Leicester are going to offer him game time. Do I see this one happening? I don't know. I don't think it's a priority, but he's certainly someone that we have been linked with quite heavily over the course of the last 4 to 5 days. Another midfield player that we've been linked with, and this has kind of been coming out more so over the course of the last 24, 48 hours, is Josh Brownhill. Now, Josh Brownhill, 29-year-old central midfield player. Equally, like some of the other players I've mentioned already, the likes of Dewsbury Hall and also likes of Chukwuemeka, he's a box-to-box midfielder. He also adds a bit of an attacking threat as well. Obviously, he's playing in the Championship this season with Burnley, but he scored 9 goals in 25 appearances. The situation with him is quite simple. Now, Burnley won't want to let him go, but what they are facing is a situation where they could end up losing him for nothing because his contract expires in June. So if he is not going to commit to the club, then the best thing that Burnley can do is to sell him just so they can get a fee for him. So you would imagine that we'd get him on a relatively cheap deal. His value at the moment on transfer markets in the region of around about £10 million. I think you're going to be looking at getting a lot less. They'll be looking at getting a lot less for him. It will be a cut price deal. Is he going to be the answer to our problems in midfield? Remains to be seen. He's a decent midfield player. I've seen him play. He's decent. Is he better than what we have? It's questionable, right? But again, nevertheless, sharing with you a player that we have been linked with in the midfield area. I think if you're looking at those options, for me, Dewsbury Hall has got to be one of the key ones that we've got to look to try and acquire. Chukwuemeka, I like him. He's a good young player, plenty of potential, plenty of sell-on value. I think he's only going to get better as a player. So I would quite like the idea of getting 1 or 2 of them into the club. Aside from midfield, strikers, again, one of the other 3 key areas that are pivotal for Potter to get right. We have been linked with a lot of strikers. We always are linked with strikers, right? Let's be honest. Over the years, we're always linked with multiple strikers. But one of the biggest problems that we've always found is that we could never seem to get some of those big name strikers over the line. We could never quite manage to get them over the line. They were too expensive. They wanted to go somewhere else. There was always an excuse. I'm hoping that with Tim Steidten, despite the fact that he's been getting a bit of a bad rap recently, he has also got to take a lot of credit for getting certain players over the line. Now, you look at the likes of Alvarez, you look at the likes of Kudus, and a lot of people saying, well, Kudus was a player that Mark Noble identified. Now, as we've mentioned on these shows before, It's all well and good spotting an opportunity. It's like being a salesperson. You can spot an opportunity, but until you close it and get a signature on a contract, it's academic. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I'm hoping Tim Stein could be the key to actually getting some of those big names over the line. And when I say big names, one that we have been linked with quite frequently and consistently over the course of the last couple of weeks has been Evan Ferguson. Now, I'm in two minds about him. One thing that I do know is he's a very, very good striker. Okay, there's no doubt in his ability. Very, very talented lad. I can recall when he broke into the Brighton team, Shearer waxing lyrical about him, saying how much of a fantastic player he is, that he's got a huge future ahead of him. His hold-up play, his link-up play, his finishing, his physicality. He was almost like a 18, 19-year-old at the time, playing like a 27, 28, 29-year-old, an experienced pro in the Premier League, right? Bit of a throwback. Really good striker. The concern with him, and the reason why I'm 50-50 on him, it's kind of an obvious thing, right? If you look at what he's been doing over the course of the last 4 to 5 years. Now, he broke into the Brighton team back in 2022-23 season, made 19 appearances in the Premier League this is, scored 6 goals. Decent turnaround, okay? Decent numbers for a young guy coming straight into the team. Second season, where he became more of an established player for Brighton, 27 appearances, scored 6 goals. Okay, not as good, but not bad. And then it takes him to this season, and obviously he's had a big injury since kind of the middle of last season, or say the last third of last season up until current. Had a nasty injury. He's only played 12 games this season, and many of which have been a substitute, and he's only scored 1 goal so far. So if you look overall over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, he's made 59 appearances for Brighton and scored 13 goals. So hardly prolific, okay? Hardly prolific. Now, that is in the Premier League. If you look at the amount of games he's played in all competitions over the course of the last 4 to 5 seasons, he's made 79 appearances and scored 17 goals. Now, for me, that isn't prolific enough to say that he will be a striker that he's going to score a lot of goals for West Ham. I think he's got talent. He's got ability. He may score a lot of goals in the future. But the big issue that I've got with him, I say issue, the big worry that I've got with him is he going to be a player like we've had in years gone by, where we sign him up and he has untold injury problems? You know, you look at people like Dean Ashton. More recently, you look at people like Fulkrug. We seem to have the ability, this innate ability to pick up strikers that actually, on paper, are very, very good in terms of their ability, but from an injury perspective, never works out at West Ham. So that's a concern, right? Why did Brighton want to let him go? When you look at what their options are up front, you know, they've got João Pedro, really good striker. And second fiddle to him would be Danny Welbeck. Danny Welbeck's a player that's kind of, I guess, entering the latter stages of his career. So why would you be willing to let, a young 20-odd-year-old striker go that has a huge amount of ability and talent, unless there's a question mark on something? And could that question mark be his injury record? Do they rely on him to actually stay fit enough to be playing games week in, week out? I don't know the answer to that. But I would also imagine that if he was that good, why would you want to let him go? Maybe I'm being slightly cynical here, but that's my concern. That being said, of course, if he came to West Ham, you back him 100%, as we always will do, right? Just worry about the injuries. Marcus Rashford's another player. There's been a bit of noise about him recently. The likelihood of him coming to West Ham, a bit like Evan Ferguson potentially, could be on a loan deal until the end of the season. Now, I don't think this one's got much legs. And the reason I think that, for a couple of reasons. One, he's wanted by 2 massive clubs in AC Milan and also Borussia Dortmund. So is he a player that's going to want to join little old West Ham, or is he going to be happy or happier to join the likes of AC Milan or Dortmund? I don't know. The other question mark I've got around him is, and I've got 3, by the way, his salary. He's ridiculously expensive. You're talking about a guy that's earning in the region of around about 300 grand a week, which is just a huge and astronomical amount of money. The third thing is, I think, his personality. I worry about the ego that he has. There's no doubting that the guy's got ability. We know he's rapid. He can finish. He can play on the left. He can play as a striker. He's a talented kid. Well, I say kid. He's not a kid anymore, right? He's kind of like latter 20s now. But he's clearly not right, because if he was, Ruben Amorim would be looking to use a player with his undoubted ability. There's no doubt in my mind about that, particularly when you look at the likes of Xerxes, who they've got, who's not a very good player, but he's getting more game time than Marcus Rashford is. So again, I'm not convinced about Marcus Rashford. I don't think he's going to be the right option for us. I mean, from a goal scoring perspective, he had a really good season. His last best season that he had really was back in 22-23. Scored 17 goals from 35 games. A lot of that was actually coming in off the left, right? So that is pretty damn good. But since then, last season, banged in 7 goals in 33. He scored 4 in 15. He can't even make the team right now. They want to get rid of him. They want to get rid of him for a reason. I think a lot of that is down to his mentality. And I don't think right now an ego is not what we need at West Ham. So let's see what happens with him. Another player that we've been linked with as well is a lad by the name of Elia Wahi, 22-year-old French striker at Marseille. Now, what he does possess is a lot of what we really need, and that's pace. And he's also pretty clinical as well. He's a very good finisher. We're not the only team that's interested in him. Apparently, Bournemouth are also going in for him as well. I'd like to think we're more of an attractive proposition than Bournemouth. We'll have to wait and see. But if you look at his goal scoring record, very, very good. Okay. If you look at when he broke into the team at Montpellier back in 2020, 21, 18 appearances, 3 goals, trying to make a name for himself, young guy coming into the team. Second season, 33 appearances, 10 goals. Third season, 33 appearances, 19 goals. Had a fantastic season in 22-23, of which then coincided and earned him a move to Lens, where he played 27 games, scored 9 goals. Again, a decent turnaround for a striker in the French league. But Marseille wanted him. Okay, I think there were some issues with him at Lens towards the end of the season at Lens. Went to Marseille, and so far this season, he's banged in 3 goals in 13 appearances. If you look at overall, he scored 47 goals in 136 games in Ligue 1. So he knows where the back of the net is. He possesses the attributes that we definitely would welcome at West Ham. He runs in the channels, he gets into spaces, into pockets. He's someone that can score goals. He's got a very good shot on him. There is a question mark on him as well, and again, that comes down to his personality. There seems to be a few things hanging over him right now, which I won't go into any detail on. That does concern me a little bit. Mason Greenwood, if you remember him at Man United, similar things going on then right now with him as well. Don't know if that's true or not. I guess you could say innocent until proven guilty, but I'm not sure about him. I'm not sure about him at all. There is one player that I'm 100% sure about, and I'm convinced that he would be a brilliant addition to West Ham, and by all accounts, someone that we have been linked with. How much we are going to really push at West Ham, because we need to. And that player is no other than Jonathan David. Now, if you look at his current market value, it's probably in the region of about 50, maybe up to 60 million. Transfer market says about 45 million. I don't always go by that. You can add a little bit more on. He's a 50, 60 million pound player, no question. If you look at what he possesses, right, first of all, he's a young striker. He's 24 years old. He's from Canada. He's been playing at Lille for, I guess, the best part of the last 5 seasons. Excellent work rate. Off the ball, excellent work rate. Really good with the high press. Loves to run at defenders. He's absolutely clinical, right? He is scoring goals on average of a goal every 2 games. And if you look at the course of the last 5 seasons that he's been playing for Lille, first season, 37 appearances, 13 goals. Second season, 38 appearances, 15 goals. Third season, 37 appearances, 24 goals in Ligue 1. Last season, 19 appearances in 34 games. And this season, he's on absolute fire. He scored 11 goals in 17 games. Overall, like I said, he's got a 1-in-2 goal scoring ratio. He scored 82 in 163 games. He, for me, is an absolute no-brainer. You add to the fact that his contract expires in June this summer, which means the 45, 50 million, 60 million price tag is going to be decreased significantly if Lille can get him off their books in January, this transfer window, which by all accounts, if he's not willing to commit to the club, then Lille will want to sell him. There's no question about that. Why would you want a player of his undoubted ability and talent and value to leave for nothing come the summer. So it would be within their best interest to let him go now. With regards to his thought process, does he want to stay at Lille and maybe earn a move to a bigger club at the end of the season? Maybe. But I'm sure Lille would rather and try and push for him to leave in January. Now, we've been linked with him many times over the years. Again, I'll go back to what I said about Tim Stuyten. Hopefully he could be the key with regards to trying to get his signature. I guess that will remain to be seen, but we have to go for him. You know, he is linked with other clubs. Of course, he's a class striker, potentially a world-class striker. I really, really hope that we do all we can, move heaven and earth to bring him into the club, because he could be the striker for West Ham for the next 5 or 6 years. Okay, he could easily be that. He could be the guy that can really take us up the league, because we just do not have a prolific striker up front. He could be the answer in that respect. So my fingers are super crossed with regards to trying to, you know, acquire his services. A couple of other strikers that we've been linked with heavily as well. Conrad Harder, 19-year-old striker from Sporting. I don't think this one's going to happen, purely because I think he's too expensive. He's 42 million plus. He's also being linked with Chelsea. Good young player, but I don't think it's going to happen for that very reason. Price tag alone, he's going to cost a lot, unless there's some situation where there's a loan deal with an option to buy and we can get him on the drip, but I don't see that one happening. The other one is Igor Jesus. Again, another player that's been linked with a lot of Premier League teams. West Ham, even Ipswich, even Arsenal have been linked with this guy. Yeah, he's an interesting guy, because if you look at his background, he was playing in the Saudi League for, I think, a few seasons. Pretty prolific over there, but I don't know if you can take too much into that. Scored 14 goals in 19 games in his last season in the Saudi League, which earned him a move to Botafogo, and he's scored 5 goals in 22 appearances. He's not overly prolific this season. If you look over the course of his career, he's scored 42 in 122 league games. Not amazing, but he's highly rated, this guy. Really highly rated. He's a typical Brazilian, very, very skillful, high energy. Apparently also, like Jonathan David, really good with the high press, which again is something that we really need. He's also in the Brazil squad as well. You don't get into the Brazil squad unless you're a good player. He's made 4 appearances for Brazil. He's scored 1 goal so far. But again, as I said, he's been linked with other clubs. There is a bit of noise that perhaps he's not going to move this January window, that perhaps it's more likely that Botafogo would like to retain his services until the summer. But hey, you know, if we come out with a good offer financially for them, maybe they'd want to let him go sooner. We don't know. But there's been a lot of noise about him as well. So let's see what happens on that front. The other striker is Kalimuendo, PSG striker. Now, again, another player that we've been linked with for a little while, but we're not the only ones that link with him. Man United are linked with him. They could do with a striker for sure. Juventus have also been linked with him as well. So when you look at those two clubs, realistically, where's he going to go? From PSG to West Ham, or from PSG to United or Juventus? I think it's likely he'll go to one of the other two teams, to be honest with you. And he'll probably cost a fair few quid as well. Can't really see that one happening. But, you know, if you look at the midfield, as I said, if you look at the midfield options that we've got right now, again, Dewsbury Hall, Chukwuemeka, players that I think could add value straight away coming into our team. Josh Brownhill maybe could be someone that sits on the bench, could be a good backup option for us, right? Box to box, something we don't have. Evan Ferguson, if he can stay injury-free, he would be a good player for us. I don't doubt that. But that's the big question mark on him. The other question mark would be his price tag. If we get him on loan, how much is he going to cost us? Can we afford it? Don't know. But we do have some very good options there. And the one thing that you can see from all of those players that I've gone through, they're all at an age where there is longevity. We can see them stand beyond 2 or 3 seasons. They're going to add value for more than 2 or 3 seasons unless they do exceptionally well and get a move to a bigger club, like maybe Jonathan David, if that happened. But you are looking at young players, which is a really nice thing to see, because, you know, many times over the years, it's always been typically players that are coming to the latter stages of their careers. So let's see what happens. Defensively, there's not been a huge amount of noise on players in terms of anything that's gaining momentum as such. There was some noise about Chilwell. I don't really want Chilwell. I don't really see the point in that one. Again, he's an injury-prone left-back, particularly when you take into account that we've got Ollie Scholes, who I thought was fantastic against Villa. Good young left-back that I think potentially could be our left-back for years to come. Why bring in Chilwell when you could have Emerson as a backup? I don't really see that. And, you know, when we need to, you can even play Wan-Bissaka as a left back if if we need to, right? So I don't really get the Chilwell link, to be honest with you. Good player when he was fit. Don't really understand that. So we shall see. But one thing you can't hide away from, 3 signings that we need to make, 3 key and pivotal signings that Potter needs to make for West Ham to make us good again. And it goes straight through the spine, centre back, central midfield, and up front. But the one person that I am really pinning my hopes to, and I'm sure every single person, every West Ham fan out there is pinning their hopes to as well, is Jonathan David. He might cost 15 million, bearing in mind his contract's run out. That's what they're saying. It could be 15 million. Do you know what? Pay 20 million for him if you have to with agents' fees. Pay whatever you need to pay for him, because you're talking about a 50, 60 million pound player there, a player that's going to add a huge amount of value to our team. Do what you need to do, Sullivan. Do what you need to do, Tim Stein. Get that one over the line. We need to make it happen. Till next time, come on, you irons.